City Skylines 2 has a huge focus on connections to the outside world, encouraging you to import and export everything from utilities to resources to college students. And that got me thinking, what if we completely ignore this mechanic? Is it possible to create a fully self-sufficient, completely isolated city with no connections to the outside world? And if you've seen my content before, this might sound familiar because we did the exact same thing in City Skylines 1, and spoiler alert, it worked. In today's video, we're going to figure out if this works in City Skylines 2 by growing a small city, then we'll completely sever all of its outside connections. But before we do that, this portion of today's video is graciously sponsored by Exter. Exter makes incredibly stylish wallets, bags, and accessories. Recently, they sent me over these two super slim wallets that I absolutely love. This aluminum card holder is made from space-grade aluminum and comes in 14 colors and patterns. And this Parliament wallet in classic brown has become my everyday wallet. It's crafted with environmentally certified premium leather and comes in 9 different colors. Both wallets hold up to 12 cards plus cash and feature built-in RFID blockers, which will keep you safe from wireless skimming. But I haven't even told you about my favorite part. The wallets come with this mechanism that fans out your cards when you need them. It also has this extra pocket where you can slip in a solar-powered wallet tracker or your most valuable and exclusive cards. Best of all, Exter has some absolutely fantastic sales going on for Black Friday. You can save up to 50% off your order, plus receive a free cash clip for all orders above $90 through the 26th of the month. And if you want to save even more while supporting the channel, use my code CityPlanner at the link in the video description to get an additional discount on top of the already fantastic sales on the website. Once again, thanks to Exter for sponsoring. Let's get back to the video. Before we get building, let's talk about the context of today's episode. We're going to be building the City of Isolation on the Archipelago Haven map. And this is the absolute perfect map for this experiment because this island that we start out on has every single natural resource available to us. But even more impressive, there are multiple copies of each of these natural resources available on this starting map. So we have everything that we need right here. We're also going to be building with Unlock All enabled. The main reason for this is I want to be able to unlock tiles at my leisure and not worry about game progression. We also have access to the natural resources view right off the bat then, so we don't inadvertently build on top of some of our natural resources. So generally, I don't think this is going to really impact the experiment much. You could still do this with natural game progression on. I just think this will be a little bit quicker. And then we aren't playing with unlimited money, but you can see that because we have unlocked all of our progression, we've received all the money from all of those different progression milestones. We have $62 million. I don't think we're going to run out of money at all. So we're going to be just fine. I also want to examine things on the island a bit. So let's take a look at our contours so we have a bit of context as to where we might be able to build. It looks like for the most part, the island's fairly flat. There is this road going down the side here that I don't really understand. We probably won't build down there. And then I want to point out one thing that I noticed about the map. If we take a look at our air pollution, we can see our wind direction and it's strong, which means that we can probably use wind turbines on this map to great effect. But we've got to be really careful about pollution because there's the opportunity to pollute all of our residential districts if we are not careful. And with the context set, let's begin building. And I think I'm going to try to use the grid tool. Let's start to think about our utilities. We will add a wind turbine for power, and I think that we could probably place that maybe right over here. And then we'll also place our water. We'll have a pump. We'll just add that right over here. And then I'm going to purchase some tiles and we'll place our wastewater treatment plant somewhere on the other side of the island where we're going to have all of our polluting uses. And just like that, we've purchased our entire island. And we'll send a road somewhere back here. And I'm not going to worry too much about things like roadway hierarchy. Not a huge concern here because of just how small the island is and just how modest our population will likely be before we cut things off. I'm thinking that we'll actually end the growth and development of our community likely when we have a population of maybe 2,000, and we'll see if we can maintain and grow it from that point in time. And I'll just dump the sewage right here. And though I could go with something a bit cleaner, reasonably, I want this to be sustainable financially too. That is going to be a goal of mine. So we are going to need to be a little bit more judicious about some of the things that we're constructing, especially since we won't be able to sell anything to outside connections. And there we go. We have everything we need to get moving. So we're going to keep this super basic. We'll begin with a bunch of commercial right along the main drag right here, and then we'll have a bunch of single family residential. Now, one of the interesting things is that because we have everything unlocked, our demand for everything is unlocked as well. So I guess we could go and maybe have some row homes along this back end right here. And then we've got a strong demand for industrial. And I think that we could keep that right along the side here. So I'm going to plant a road right about here. And the main purpose of that road is to ensure that we don't encroach upon those natural resources that we have over there. And nothing fancy here, just a couple of blocks where we can zone in some industrial. And while we're over here, why don't we start thinking about that industry? The one thing that makes me a little nervous to build this is that we are going to start competing for employees, but maybe it's not a bad thing. We'll juice up our demand right away. So we will place our ore mining right here as well as our coal mining. We can put those side by side. They have the exact same needs. 2 of our industries already complete. So now let's go back to our city. We're going to need all of our city services, so I think we'll just build those right away. And I'll place a basic police and fire station right in our downtown area. And then we'll also need schools. We'll place an elementary school, maybe off the side here, and a high school. This will probably be a good location for the high school too, so we'll go opposite. So all of our core city services are right there. Then we will focus on garbage management. We'll put a landfill right about here. And now I want to think a little bit about leisure to make sure that people want to move here. Although look at our population is just booming, so maybe it's not a huge deal. But we'll place a nice park. I want to go with something that's relatively inexpensive. So maybe we just go with a dog park and a couple of small playgrounds. And then we'll also need health and death care. So we will purchase a clinic. We'll put that on the other side of downtown. And then we'll need a cemetery, or actually, I wonder, crematorium is slightly cheaper. So we'll go with that. And there we go. We've placed our health care and our death care right here, side by side, the circle of life. We could use some high density, which maybe we will just go for that right away. We'll add in a low rent housing complex. So I think we'll build a small office complex out here, and we'll continue going low density with this. I don't think it hurts anything. I don't think that the density is going to have much bearing on this experiment at all. Now I'm noticing a couple of power problems, which honestly kind of surprises me. What's going on with this? Low wind speed, and I thought it was pretty good here. Interesting. Well, we will add a solar assist and a battery extension. That should help us out, keeping things moving. And then we still have the advanced rotor system if we need it. In fact, let's just do it. We're going to be building a lot really fast, and I don't want this to become a recurring issue. So there we go. Let's continue to build out our industries, and we will have some of our grain farming because we have all of this fertile land, and we've got that right here. In fact, let's just place this right next to our power plant. And there we go. We've got a huge grain farm. I decided not to go all the way over though, because we could place our vegetable farm right here then and take advantage of some of the other fertile ground that's close by. And there we've got a vegetable farm, and that means that for our fertile grounds, I think we only have one more farm. That's our textile farm. We'll place that as well. And now that one's connected. That means that we've got 5 of our 9 specialized industries in place. Now, before we get any further with our specialized industries, I want to switch gears for just a moment and really start to take a look at our taxes, because I want to make sure that we are attracting all businesses and all people into our community. So we're going to need to adjust a few things. Right here, for instance, we don't have lodging. Maybe that one doesn't matter because we're not going to have any visitors. But we do want meals, that is leisure activities. So I'm going to subsidize these. In fact, we'll just subsidize all of the things that we're not getting in our community because we want to ensure that they're showing up here. Now, 2,000 is about where I want to cut us off, so we've got to continue to speed build. I'm going to build the last few specialized industries and try to avoid all residential for the time being. So we'll build a lumber industry next, and I think that this is an excellent location, just as long as we don't have any conflicts. But yeah, we've got fertile ground over there, that's fine. And this is the first time I'm realizing we can actually have fertile ground and forests in the same location, which is outstanding. That was always something that kind of irked me in Cities Skylines 1 because it's just not realistic. There's often clearing of forests for fertile ground, so why wouldn't we have that readily available to us? And perfect. So next we are going to have some of our livestock farming, and these can go anywhere along with our stone mining. So for our stone mining, I think we'll go right about here. And then our final industry is going to be our oil industry. And that is right here. I actually overlapped it a bit. I don't think it's a huge deal. We'll just sneak that thing back here. And just like that, we have all of our industries available to us. We need to focus on our general industry now. And you can see the demand is through the roof. And it's also important to recognize that all of these aren't actually fulfilling that demand. It's actually probably making it worse. So, and that took a pretty significant chunk out of all of our industrial demand right here. So hopefully this will be all that we need. Let's take one look at our production to see where we're at. We've got production of everything except electronics, which makes me think that maybe we've got an educational bottleneck there that we'll need to take care of. Let's focus on education. I'm going to add a college. I don't love this. Our community is really small and it's going to be really expensive to add this, but I think that for a balanced population, we're likely going to need it. And this is where I wish I had a little bit more fine-tuned adjustment of some of the buildings in this game. I can't turn down the amount that we're spending on this college. I imagine we'll have 50 people using this a year. It's absolutely crazy to spend this much per month on it, but you know, we have to do what we have to do. Let's go ahead and expand our little industrial district a bit more, or rather our little office district. And honestly, it's kind of wild to see just how strong our demand is across the board for just about everything, but it's also making me feel very, very hopeful. Hopefully that's not misplaced hope. We'll have to find out. And looking at our demand, it's commercial, single-family residential, and industrial that are most in need. I'm going to expand our commercial offerings. We'll have something along the highway here. Our industrial, I think we'll add another couple blocks, and then we are getting very close to just cutting off our city at this point, which I'm really excited to do. Now let's take a look at our budget, and it looks like, oh boy, we are losing some money. And once again, looking at our production chain, yeah, we've got a significant deficit for wheat and vegetables. Now I'm not sure if this is because we're connected to the outside world or not, so I'm gonna try not to overreact. The wheat deficit just keeps growing. Even though we're producing a ton, it looks like we could make basically an unlimited amount. I guess it does go into a whole bunch of products. It goes into petroleum, it goes into beverages, convenience food. So we'll try to find one more location for this. Maybe that's the one thing that we worry about. We'll place that right over here. Let's take one more look at our production chain before we kind of just let things go. Editor Phil here, and I'm about to dive down the rabbit hole of insanity where I attempt to tweak the sliders just perfectly to get every single industry to grow into the community. The problem is they're all going out of business because we have so many more jobs than people that we just can't maintain them. So I'm gonna skip past a significant chunk of this, but know that we're gonna add some more commercial, which we don't really need. So there we go. Back to it. And you know, it just seems like the more I adjust these, the less it matters. So we have crossed our 2,000 population threshold, and we know what that means. That means that we are now a hermit kingdom. Now all of our outside connections are severed, and I've decided to pause for just a moment because of this view. I'm noticing that we have a lot of need for employees, and I think that maybe this is why we weren't able to actually balance out our commercial or industries when we were trying to do so through taxes. So I think that we need to take a look at our statistics and see if there's anything that we can glean from there. So I think that looking at unemployment tells us everything that we need to know. We are currently at negative 36% unemployment. So I didn't, this is kind of a strange way of displaying unemployment, but it is showing us what I was worried about. And looking at our population probably makes it even more clear. We currently have 3,600 jobs and less than half the number of people employed. So we do have a significant issue, a mismatch between our jobs and our population. So hopefully we can grow the city enough naturally through births, I guess, to be able to come up with an equilibrium, but it's going to take some time. So what I think we need to do is before we run anything, we need to actually build an area for our residential, our future residential. If we look at our demand here, it's all that we need. Single family, medium and high density, they're all very, very in demand. So I'm going to basically send a residential neighborhood back here. And then finally, let's go behind the university and add the exact same thing. Now, I wouldn't normally zone this much up front unnecessarily, but I just think that at this point, I want to let this thing run for a while. That's the only way that we're going to know if things are actually working, is to let kids be born. Let some of the adults become seniors and see what happens with our population. And that's what I've done right here. We just have a whole bunch more residential. Now, one other consideration that we need to make with our transportation network before we do anything is we've got this pinch point right here. We're basically taking Laurel Street, and it is a major pinch point. So I think we're going to upgrade this to be a 4-lane road, and then I'm going to add a little bit more connectivity through here. And I'm going to be honest and say that I've just allowed myself to have a little bit of fun here. I made this little transition district. Now we have a couple of blocks, a couple of different options to get in between our industrial district and this district right here. So we shouldn't have the transportation network acting as a significant bottleneck and problem for us. And we have this other road that we could stub through if we have to. Before we resume though, I do want to take a look at a few other city services. In particular, I want to take a look at our parks. One thing that I've been noticing about City Skylines too is that it appears that though you could have very good leisure and park coverage at one point in time, as your city grows, your coverage degrades. And I actually really like that because it really feels natural. If you have a 1 square mile area with 50 people in it, one park might be enough. But if you get 5,000 people in there, well, now it's a little bit of a different conversation because that park's likely always busy. So we're going to load this up and try to make this as good of a place as it can be for residents. We want to give them options. We'll give them a downtown dog park because everyone loves a dog park. And it's not even enough. They just want more and more and more. Now I'm really curious. I just took out a bit of housing, which, we probably shouldn't be doing. But if I do that, can the people leave? So they shouldn't be able to right now. Now, beyond park coverage, we're good there. We're going to take a look at all of our other city services and then one that I forgot about. So our healthcare coverage appears to be okay, but I think we need to be better than okay. You see that the coverage is good, but when we look here, we see that the average health is only 63%. So I'm hoping that all those extra parks do the trick. I'm going to do one more thing, and I don't know if this actually matters. We've got this outdoor gym. I don't think it'll matter, but we'll add a couple. So there we are, one right there, one right there. And then let's look at our education. This is probably the one that should matter the most in terms of getting our employment figured out. And you can see that we have plenty of availability except for university. Now, I want to look at our taxes real quick. We don't have anyone highly educated in the community. I'm going to take a leap of faith here, and we're going to place a university. I really, really, really dislike this because this is going to make it really difficult for us to balance our budget, which is a goal of mine, at least in the long term. We know we're not going to have a highway, so why not put a university there instead? It's kind of amazing when you see how much land transportation uses can actually take up. Now let's look at police and fire. Our fire coverage is not so good down here. I think we're going to be okay with that. It'll be fine. We've upgraded our transportation network. For our police coverage, kind of the same story. And then the one thing that we haven't thought about at all is communications. So I don't think the post office matters a ton, but the internet does. So even though we're isolated, let's give our citizens the internet. And now I want to look right here at the happiness to see what people are upset about. They were upset about the internet. They were upset about a lack of entertainment and noise pollution. That's noisy downtown. That's pretty difficult to solve. The only thing that we could do. So I removed all the street parking in the downtown area, and then we'll add a parking lot. And then the very last thing I want to do is go over to our taxation. We'll worry about balancing the budget in the future. For now, let's drop all these down so we've got crazy demand. So we're going to let this thing run for about an hour in my real time. And I just realized there's one thing we have to do before we do that. We've got to plant a whole bunch of trees because after an hour of letting this thing run, the whole island is going to be absolutely beautiful if we plant lots of trees. And after planting a ridiculous number of trees that came from places, I think now we'll let that hour counter start. 60 minutes and one breakfast burrito later, and our population has increased by about 80, which is honestly not as impressive as I thought it was going to be. In fact, we're just rounding the bend. Maybe we'll get to 100 in the next few minutes. We're gaining 9 people per minute. Now, a couple of interesting things that I want to point out. Initially, I decided to delete some of the abandoned buildings, and it appeared that helped satiate this super high density demand. I don't understand why we have such crazy high density demand. It's as though everyone's dissatisfied with their single family homes, and they've decided we need towers, but you're going to live there by yourself. Let's even take a look at these. Yeah, 4 households out of 18 in this tower. So it's not as though there isn't space available. Look at this. We get rid of these and immediately a gigantic tower goes up in its place. I've got a couple of things I want to do. We're going to run this again. I'll see you, City Skylines, too, and I will give you all the high density in the world. I will clean up some of these things, and then I want to look at the statistics to see if there's anything that we can determine based upon those statistics. I also want to just spot check a couple of homes and see, is there any problem? No, look at this. I mean, this person's totally happy. Everything, they have reliable mail service. We don't have a post office. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. We'll get rid of these and we'll be right back. And just reasonably, I could have decided not to cut away. There were 3 more buildings to demolish, but we do have a tower now. It's the biggest building in our city, and it has no one living in it, which is not surprising. No one lives here. So a couple of things I was thinking about. In City Skylines 1, we had the Child Health Center that would boost up your birth rates. And I'm curious to know if the Child Health Center on the elementary school has a similar sort of paradigm. So we get plus 5% health for students, but will that increase our birth rate? Let's look at our birth rate, look at our population change, and this is interesting. We've got citizens moving in, 60 of them. That doesn't make any sense. We've also got a declining birth rate, also makes no sense. And we've got a death rate that is below both, so we should have a growing population. No one's moving out. Let's increase our time scale. Yeah, look at that. I'm wondering if this is bugged or not, or if people are teleporting, because I did notice that we have ships coming behind here. And also, I guess if you were really, really daring, you could shoot yourself off the highway onto our university grounds here and maybe exist. So maybe we just need to completely sever all outside connections, really do it right. But first, let's add this, and we'll also add a playground. I don't know that that's going to matter at all. I also want to look at our demographic breakdown to see, how many, most of our population are adults, which is good. That means that they could reasonably have children. I just don't understand why we're seeing 64 people a month moving into the city. Wow. Okay, that's our next thing. We're going to solve that by buying a ton of tiles. And we're going to look at our outside connections. I think we should be able to find all the tiles with highways and rail and ship connections. Just get rid of everything that is potentially disrupting us at this point in time. And that right there should be every single outside connection on the map, with the exception of air, which I'm not actually sure that I can get rid of. I can see it up here, but I don't know that I can select it. So I guess we'll have to live with just that one. Yeah, I want that gone. I want you gone. I wonder. I can't add a new air. Yeah, I can't now. It's just the thing that's there. Now, I did notice one thing though. As I was eliminating all this to the outside connection view, I could see the top imports and exports. Now, again, what are we importing or exporting? That doesn't make any sense. So we shouldn't be importing or exporting anything at this point because we had no connections. So now that we've done this, let's take a look at our stats once again, but I want to look at our production rather. And we can see huge deficit in grain, which is something I've noticed. I don't know if that's because of the petroleum and the drinks and the food or why it's so intense, but that's a thing. And then if we look at our goods here, it looks like we are producing all of the goods now and all of the immaterial goods, even a half ton of lodging, whatever that means. So we've got a little bit of everything. Okay, and before we let this simulate one more time, let's try to fulfill all the needs. And it looks like it's just unreliable healthcare coverage. That's the only problem in this city. And you can see the coverage has degraded, so we'll place one over here. And I'd imagine that this is a clinic for this university, which has 36 students. What a great deal. $200,000 a month to serve 36 students. Same thing with our high school. Our elementary school at least has some people in it, so that is a thing. And then before we let this run, there is a demand for single family once again. I will just try to fulfill some of this. We'll soak this up by adding a bit of single family along the outside of this. And I don't really understand the incessant demand for industrial at this point. I mean, look at this. Every single industrial building is lacking employees. So apparently they just want it for no apparent reason. So now that we've taken care of some of those needs, we could balance our budget. I don't think that we want to. The last thing I think we're going to do is let's actually lower our residential budget to 0 and crank up our other budgets to try to balance things out a little bit. Actually, let's go even further. Let's completely incentivize birth, I think. So we're gonna let this run for 1 hour and we'll see how things change. So another hour has passed. I've vacuumed the floor. I've talked to my sister about Thanksgiving. I might be making some oxtails. They'll be delicious. And now we have some significant population growth in this city. Now, we cut the city off from the outside world completely in July 2023. And at that point in time, our population was 2,026. We're now at 2,373. We do a bit of math. We can see that that is 17% population growth in less than a year. So I am a little bit curious about the stats here, and I want to see, this is the thing that I am still very curious about. Look at this. Our birth rate has plummeted, which I expected this to happen because it was happening when we started this hour-long time lapse, and it's continued as we've continued the time lapse. Our influx is continuing. I don't understand why we still have citizens moving in, and it makes me wonder, are we seeing a bug with influx? Like this chart is wrong and we don't actually have people moving in, or are we actually seeing influx occurring and people are teleporting to our little island? I'm not sure. And our population's going up, so things are looking good. As far as unemployment, it's getting worse and worse. So, and I mean that for the businesses, not the people. They can basically decide to have 3 jobs if they want. Our trade, none. Okay, so this is actually promising. In this menu, we're seeing that we're basically not trading anything, which is what we would expect to see. So something is okay here. For tourists, none. Also, what we'd expect to see, and this is actually an improvement on City Skylines 1, because you might remember if you watched the original video, we had 1 or 2 or 3 or a dozen tourists, whatever it was, that were trapped in the city and never left. Apparently, they become citizens in this little community, or something more nefarious. And the other thing I'm really curious about is our population, our breakdown. We do see more seniors and more children. So that does make me feel good there. I also see that 76 people a month are moving in. I don't understand this. That makes no sense. And our birth rate is honestly very low. It's below replacement. So if people weren't teleporting to our city, it should be dying. So confused. In terms of our overall health, it is also declining. Even though I built another hospital, even though we built this child health center, it was 63, now it's 62. There's only 12 people that are sick here. I don't really get it. Maybe we'll take a look at our air pollution. Yeah, that's fine too. It is also going in the correct direction so that we are not polluting our city. So generally, I feel conflicted. To really make this a self-sufficient city, we do need to balance our budget. Y'all can't move out, so I guess I can just raise taxes as high as I want. And after a bit of tweaking, I have balanced the budget. The way that I was able to do that was adjusting our tax rate to 22% across the board. Hasn't impacted our demand. Everyone still wants to live here. I guess they have no options. And then looking at our services, I went into education and I reduced it to 50%. And because of the way that the budgets work in City Skylines 2, the service efficiency is 75%. People might not graduate. You know, we're still paying a lot for that privilege of them not to graduate. But we have a balanced budget. We have a growing population, and we can say, yes, it is possible to create a fully self-sufficient and isolated hermit kingdom. That is something that you can do in City Skylines 2. Will it make sense? No, maybe not. Maybe it won't. Will it be satisfying? I've actually had fun building this. So that's the weird thing about City Skylines 2. Even when you find a bunch of weird bugs, I still found myself having a good deal of fun with the game. So I guess take it for what it is. I do want to know though, if you have any ideas as to ways that we could maybe juice the population growth. Oh, it's actually improving. I don't understand. If you have ideas about how we could really improve the population growth, and if you want to see this city continue, please let me know down in the comments, and maybe we'll continue to build this with some of your ideas implemented. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And maybe you'll get more videos like this one, weird ones. Thank you so much for your time today, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.